So the dogs are all sorted. And it was my dog, not the neighbour's dog. They just love to make an appearance in these videos. And seeking is always falling away during the day. So liberation is always happening. It's just not noticed. Seeking and suffering is more dramatic, so it's noticed. The mind remembers it. The getting of pleasure, the avoiding of pain. It's more, there's more sensations involved with it. So that's what's focused on in the daily experience. But actually, in the daily experience, happiness is happening all the time, in and out. Whenever you feel happy or expanded or love, that's it. It's so simple. It's not a dramatic experience. People expect this big flashes of light and all the kundalini energy to arise. In the apparent process, all these things can happen, an apparent awakening, but at the end of the day, what you're left with is well-being, relaxation, and happiness. And a sense of maybe being in love, but not in love like in a lover, but it's like everything's accepted, everything's embraced. And you know, your partner can get angry with you, you can lose all your money, and none of it's seen as your unhappiness, so all of it's just a pain or a pleasure. And the pain isn't anything like suffering and pain together. Like the pain and then the avoidance, the suffering energy of trying to avoid that pain. I mean, pain's barely noticeable. It is if it's, you know, physical pain and fire burns you or something, but you know, your partner shouting at you, your partner not doing what you want, or the bank screwing up your account, none of it's not seen as your happiness, not to spend hours on the line sorting out your banking. It's not seen as unhappiness, and it's not seen as your happiness, so it's a bit indifferent. Whatever forms appear, everything's accepted. This is deeply relaxing. And this is happening throughout the day of you. But the attention is on the seeking. You know, you get involved in an email, and there's expansion, and there's a flow, and there's connection, or whatever you call it. You're walking your dogs and throwing the ball, and you think the happiness is about you finally out walking your dogs and throwing the ball, but it's not. Just the seeking's fallen away, and there's expansion. And this is going in and out, in and out, in and out the whole time. But people don't want to hear this. They want some big dramatic experience of enlightenment. They want it to happen to someone. They want it to be different and normal, huge pleasure. But it's so simple, it's so ordinary, and it's here all the time. It's just the apparent seeker, the apparent individual is looking over it. No cause created happiness. No effect created happiness. No cause, effect created unhappiness. Happiness is who you are. It's just when the attention is on seeking, the attention is narrow. And nobody can put the attention on happiness or on unhappiness, because there's nobody there doing anything. This seeking energy is just the drama created by life. There's nobody there at all. There's just life happening. There's just verbing. There's just doing. And to be honest with you, there's actually no time and space. There's only ever just this moment. all the past thoughts or future projections never actually happened. This isn't a teaching on this. This is just a teaching on looking at the dynamic of suffering. Nothing. It's that the film is that life is like a film. You know how in the film each shot is just a picture. So it's taken in pictures, and then when they're put quickly together, action apparently happens. This is like life, except there isn't these separate moments of pictures, but life is just this. And then apparent time and space creates movement. There's actually only stillness. But in this stillness, there's an apparent effect of movement. So in that dynamic, if there's no cause and effect, if the picture before didn't affect this picture, how can happiness ever come from something in the future or in the past or in the flow of life? It's who you are. There's never the past and future. No moment is ever affecting this. It just appears that way in the story. Because of the way the human brain works and because of the way life wants to experience, this is through movement, is through apparent action. This is very complicated, this stuff. I need a whole video series on this. But basically, what it's coming down to is that what you are is the stillness, the space, is nothing, is absolute happiness, and not happiness in the positive, like woohoo, like pleasure. It's happiness in the absolute non-attachment to anything in the flow of life. Anything. Because there is no flow of life, really. There's only ever just this, life happening. But suffering and the apparent individual happens in time. It all apparently happens in time. If you can see and understand there is no time, you can understand that there is no cause to happiness. No effect which creates happiness. Happiness is the timeless. It's just being the space in which everything arises, not identifying with any of it. It's becoming the idiot, the bozo. Not that incredible intelligent thought can't arise, but it's just the absolute unknowing. And this is so impossible to talk about because you talk about seeking and suffering and you're talking about flow of life, and then there is no flow of life. It's all contradictions. It's always talked about in contradictions because it's impossible to talk about. There is never any intellect which can understand this. However, in the apparent story, there's this apparent dance of these words coming out, of ideas falling away, of apparent understanding. That's just the apparent story. And really, it's never these things that create happiness. It just appears that way in the story. It appears that it's seen through the dynamic of seeking. So it's never these words that are understood. Come on, doggies. It's never these words are understood, and happiness comes from that. That's another seeking. That's another idea that something's happening. There's an individual doing something, an individual understanding. It's just only ever this. Can you feel the head melt? Nothing to hold on to. Because believing that understanding too is another seeking, and understanding can lead to happiness. It's what you are. It's what's sitting watching. Can you see all this dynamic? Future makes me happy. Spiritual seeking makes me happy. Understanding makes me happy. Lisa's words make me happy. There's only ever happiness. And in the happiness, there's this apparent contraction and dance of a separate self. This is so hard to talk about. And this can never ever really make sense. Because there's nobody here making sense of it. Apparent thoughts can arise which seem clear, but they're just apparent thoughts. They're not your happiness either. Screw everything I say. This. Can you sense this deep relaxation? It's always there. Always who you are. Always watching all of this. Everything is only just a pointer. One thorn to remove another thorn. Happiness is not living in an intellectual understanding of this. Happiness is this. All walls fall down. All ideas that anything can ever make you happy. You are happy, including spiritual seeking and spiritual understanding. There is no understanding. In cause and effect, it apparently appears that somebody understands. But that's just the beautiful dance. I have to stop. Nearly at 15 minutes. Just the beautiful dance, just like the bird appearing and flying past the window.